Department.
President Trump now asking Congress to investigate the baseless wiretapping claim and getting a mixed response. House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes saying his committee will look into the matter as part of its broader probe of Russian campaign meddling. But other Republicans now pushing back against the president's wiretapping claim. And former National Intelligence Chief James Clapper telling NBC that it simply did not happen.
There was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign.
If the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this.
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order
Yes.
on something like this.
Something like this, absolutely.
More now from White House correspondent Athena Jones covering the president in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Good morning, Christine and Dave. The president spent the weekend here in Florida. It was his fourth trip to his Mar-a-Lago estate.
That's what we call in television news a hiccup in our television production. We lost
John Oliver did it.
John Oliver somehow shows up. No, Athena Jones was in West Palm Beach for us this morning, and she's been talking about all of this controversy. I want to go to Greg Valliere. There he is. He's in Washington for us. He's a political economist, the chief strategist for Horizon Investments. And Greg, this sounds like a president who has stepped on his own message. He could be talking about a revised travel warning. He could be talking about Obamacare this week. We could be talking about a legislative agenda. But we are talking about the president of the United States with the most stunning accusation against his predecessor I've ever seen.
You know, what a difference less than a week makes in politics. Last Tuesday, Wednesday, everyone was talking about his speech, which was very well delivered and well received. Now, that's a distant memory. It's all about who might leave the White House. It's all about unsubstantiated allegations. And you're right, Christine. The big angle, I think, or one of the big angles, is that there's some big policy issues now. Health care coming up, tax reform, infrastructure, the budget, and all of these things are going to get obscured by these new allegations.
Greg, does he lose leadership capital because of this, do you think? I mean, he's going to have to really be a leader with Paul Ryan and others on all of those. Does he lose political capital?
That's a really good point. I've always thought political capital is the key factor in this town, and once you start to lose it, it makes it harder to get stuff done. So here's the litmus test. Can Trump inject himself into this Obamacare replacement fight? It looks like Paul Ryan is losing votes among conservatives. I think the president has to get involved, but you have to ask the question after this weekend, does he have the clout to make a difference?
Tough turn. Joining us to discuss, senior media correspondent Brian Stelter, the host of Reliable Sources. Good morning to you, Brian. 3 U.S. senators, Marco Rubio, Susan Collins, Tom Cotton, on the Intelligence Committee saying no evidence of the wiretapping. So where is the president getting his allegations?
Rubio seemed confused about this when asked by Jake Tapper yesterday. This is essentially a conspiracy theory, and there may be hints of truth or edges of truth to this.
As most conspiracy theories have 1% kernel somewhere that allows otherwise intelligent people to believe it.
This stemmed in part from news reports from months ago that perhaps a few of Trump's associates were the targets of investigations involving their ties to Russia. Is it possible that there were FISA orders to target those individuals in Trump's orbit? That was the reporting from last fall. It was all anonymously sourced, never confirmed by the CNNs or the New York Times or the Washington Post of the world. But from those reports months ago comes this theory from Mark Levin, the radio host on Thursday, saying there's a silent coup in the works, that these are police state tactics by Obama and his allies to undermine the new president. Rush Limbaugh picks up on it on Friday. Breitbart picks up on it on Friday. That article from Breitbart circulates in the West Wing. And there, lo and behold, Saturday morning, we get the president's tweet storm.
You talk about that, it was Nancy Pelosi, the House leader, who said it's authoritarian to throw something out there and make it, she used the authoritarian claim against the president. I think no surprise.
I would describe it as confusion. Sowing confusion benefits people in power, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. When you're in power and people are confused, you can benefit from that. And right now, Trump is muddying the waters, creating confusion.
Undermining institutions kind of fits that Steve Bannon worldview.
Dave and I were looking at this E.J. Dionne piece in the Washington Post, an opinion piece, and this sort of, I think, crystallizes what the kind of the choices are here. Trump has a problem either way. If he was not wiretapped, he invented a spectacularly false charge. And if a court ordered some sort of surveillance of him, on what grounds did it do so?
Right.
Every time the issue of the relationship between Trump's apparatus and Moscow comes up, he is moved to unleash unhinged counterattacks. This only underscores how urgent it is to get to the bottom of the story quickly. You know, Greg, the markets and Republicans and mainstream Republicans, I think, have been very happy with Donald Trump so far, even knowing that he can tweet conspiracy theories and sometimes they don't know how he synthesizes his information. Does this move the needle in the other direction?
Maybe not yet. And I would just say, Christine, for all of the viewers who are investors, the fundamentals are still pretty darn good. The economy is getting better. The labor market is healing. Corporate earnings look good. You know, Janet Yellen's going to have to raise rates next week, but I think that's well factored into the market. So the markets still have good fundamentals. However, if this story drags on and on and on, the markets are going to worry that the Trump agenda is in trouble. That's not a good story.
Now, some have suggested, including Mike Mukasey, former Bush AG, that there was some sort of wiretapping, some sort of surveillance, Brian, done, that maybe that came from the AG. So there is some out there who feel that there was some source of wiretapping. But what are the public statements from the Trump administration saying about this evidence? Sarah Huckabee Sanders out there, Kellyanne Conway as well.
This reminds me a little bit of the nursery school behavior. I know you are, but what am I? And what I mean by that is we're seeing President Trump and his aides throw back the same claims that have been used against them. So President Trump on Twitter was saying, Obama's like Nixon. This is like Watergate. When in fact, that's been a claim made against the Trump administration. We saw Sarah Huckabee Sanders say, if this is true about Obama, it's the biggest scandal ever, an attack on democracy. Well, what have people been saying about Russia and attempts to interfere with the election? An attack on democracy. So they take the language that's being used against Trump, they try to apply it against Obama. And by the way, that's working in right-wing media. You look at some of the blogs this morning, you look at right-wing talk radio over the weekend, you are hearing people buy into this idea that this is all Obama's fault, that Obama is trying to undermine Trump. So some of what Sarah Huckabee Sanders was saying on Sunday has permeated, has been effective, and some of what Trump's messaging from his tweets, it's been effective.
Brian, how pissed off is the president? I mean, what's the reporting? We've seen a lot of reporting this weekend. He is mad, not about this.
I think that's crucial.
But about the Sessions stuff.
Chris Ruddy, Chris Ruddy, the CEO of Newsmax, one of Trump's friends, a member at Mar-a-Lago, spent time with him on Saturday and told me Trump is pissed. He says hasn't been this pissed in a long, long time. Says he is absolutely confident Obama was wiretapping him, and it'll be proven someday. You look at the morning papers, the Post, the Times.
Trump absolutely believes he was tapped by Barack Obama.
Absolutely believes it, and that it will be proven right someday. There are numerous stories in the Post, the Times, Politico this morning, citing anonymous sources describing incredible tensions inside the White House. Some pointing the finger at Reince Priebus, others pointing fingers in other directions.
Greg?
And fearless forecast, guys, by the end of March, somebody important will be gone. Whether it's Priebus, whether it's Spicer, I think there's going to be a shakeup by the end of the month.
Fearless forecast from Greg Valliere.
Okay.
He's often right with those fearless forecasts. One of his fearless forecasts was don't underestimate Donald Trump, and that turned out to be very right. All right, Greg Valliere, Brian Stelter, nice to see you guys this Monday morning. Get back to work, guys.
Okay.
Will we finally see the new travel ban from the White House today? There are signs.
Before, though, we're told as early as today is coming. The order was delayed last week, as you remember, in an effort to keep the focus on good press for Mr. Trump's address to Congress. My, how things have changed. CNN's justice reporter Laura Jarrett has more from Washington. Good morning to you, Laura. What are you hearing? Is there an update on timing, and how is this new version different from the first?
Well, we expect to see the new executive order rolled out as soon as today, Dave. And the main changes are that green card holders and those with existing visas will be excluded from the travel ban, so they will be able to travel as normal. But we've also heard that several top members of the president's cabinet wanted Iraq specifically removed from the list of banned countries, so that will be something to watch. And finally, Dave, we expect to see the old executive order officially revoked, despite the fact that we heard from the administration previously about keeping the old one on some sort of dual track with the new one.
How might all of the delays we've seen, Laura, for the new executive order, how might that undermine the government's initial rationale that this was imperative to national security?
Well, it's going to be really interesting to watch how this plays out in court, because to the extent that the administration took over a month to rewrite this travel ban to comply with a court order, no judge is going to blame them for trying to get it right. But if, in fact, they delayed this rollout for some sort of political reason, then that could certainly come back to bite them the minute the government starts using words like emergency in court again.
So what about all the lawsuits regarding the first executive order? Where do they stand now?
Well, lawyers at the Justice Department had tried very hard during these intervening weeks to get the active cases put on hold while they were reworking this executive order. But several judges said no, and those cases are barreling ahead. So the question now is, what happens when the new executive order comes down? Do these lawsuits just start all over again from scratch, or do immigration lawyers try to argue that this ban is just like the old one? We'll just have to wait and see.
Oh, yeah, keeping some lawyers in business. Thank you so much, Laura Jarrett. Nice to see you this morning.
Should have some
Thanks.
news on that later today. Meanwhile, the New York Knicks went old school for the first time.